If you're sending tracks off to be mastered, or you're even thinking about it, or you just want to know a little bit more about the process, don't skip today's video, because I'm going to be talking about how to prepare files, what to send, what not to send, and most importantly, how to communicate with your mastering engineer so that you get the best results possible. So let's dive straight in. So the first step is preparing your mix, and this first tip is a big, huge one that everyone says that they do and then they never do properly, and that is finishing your mix. Is this your final mix? And I know you're going to be sat there nodding your heads going, yeah, definitely finished this time. But this is a super common problem, and it happens all the time. Artists will send a mix off to be mastered, and then a day later, or sometimes a couple of hours later, they'll send another one and say, oh, I just tweaked this thing. Can you work from this one now? And sometimes the track's already been mastered. So guess what? You got to pay twice. So it's super important for the mastering engineer and for you that the track you're sending is actually finished. Really finished. Super, definitely final finished. So that's the first tip. If you're unsure, then that's okay. And you can also reach out to your mastering engineer and say, I think this is finished. I'm kind of happy with it, but I'm unsure. Would you mind checking it and seeing if there's anything glaringly obvious with the mix that I can improve or that would make your job a little bit easier? And that's something I do with clients here all the time, especially with clients I've built a relationship with. They might send me a mix in progress, or they might send me their final mix and just say, I'm happy with it, but if you spot anything that would make the mastering easier or sound better, please tell me and I'll adjust the mix and send you a fresh one. And that's a different thing than just sending a final mix and then just carrying on mixing it, or just opening up the session again and thinking, oh, I might have a little tweak here, and then keep sending files to your mastering engineer, because you're very quickly going to annoy your mastering engineer and burn bridges. And also you're just going to get totally lost in the mixing process, and you're going to lose objectivity, and you'll just stop being able to tell what sounds good and what doesn't. I like using food analogies. Imagine if you're cooking a meal and you just never stopped. You've got to decide at some point the food's ready to eat, and if you carry on cooking it, you're only going to make it worse. And if you serve it and then bring it back and cook it again and keep serving it and doing that, it's not going to work. So I'm really trying to hammer this point home. Make sure your mix is absolutely finished. So I'm going to take a deep breath and calm down after that, because that's a big sort of bugbear of a lot of mastering engineers. So you've got your final mix definitely finished. You're not going to go back to the session and keep tweaking it. The next part is what to send and how to send it. So mastering engineers, we want a WAV file, and we want it at the sample rate and bit depth of your mixing session. So if you've mixed your song at, let's say, 48K sample rate and 24 bit depth, send it at that. There's no need to do any conversion, any dithering or anything like that. We want the highest possible res file that you've been working on. That's it. We don't need to change anything. Sometimes mastering engineers might upsample stuff to run it through their super expensive outboard and recapture it at a higher sample rate. Some people do that, some people don't, but leave that to the mastering engineer. They've got the best tools, the best conversion, and all that kind of stuff for the job. So finished mix, WAV file at the same sample rate and bit depth. Don't change anything. And then important stuff to kind of include are artist name, track names, and track order as well, if it's, say, an album or an EP. If you've not decided on the track order, that's okay. Just tell your mastering engineer that. I quite like to work on stuff in the order that it's going to be released, especially if it's an album with, say, 8 or 10 or 12 tracks, because these things kind of have a bit of a flow to them. And if there's going to be a quiet section or song and then a loud one and then a quiet one, I kind of want to master it in that way to see how it flows and how it feels with each song going into the next. So I like to do that. But again, if it's not possible, if you've not fully decided, it's not a huge deal. Having everything clearly labelled, though, is important. And having the artist name, album name, track names as well are kind of important at this stage. If you've not decided that yet, just get on with it, make your mind up and do that. Sometimes I might chat with Dave at whatever at gmail.com, and halfway through the project I realise I don't actually know the artist name or the band name, because I'm just chatting with such and such single person. So include all of that. That's super handy, because we're going to write in metadata and we want to write all that stuff on your files, so everything's super clear and labelled really clearly. Now, when it comes to exporting out of your session, mix bus processing is something to think about. Some people will mix into a compressor or a limiter and have that on the end of their mixing chain, and it really depends how you've constructed your mix as to whether you leave that on or take it off. I always say to my clients that if you've started the mix with a compressor or a limiter or some bus processing on it, and that is informing the sound of the mix, you can leave it on. If you've done your mix and then you've just put an end limiter on, say just for loudness reference, you've just put that on to bring the loudness up to hear kind of what it's going to sound like when it is a bit louder, take it off. And if you're really unsure, you can send both to your mastering engineer and say, I wasn't sure which one to send. You just choose the one that you think is going to work best. And your mastering engineer will listen to them, maybe even drag both of them into the session and just see which one will work best for the mastering process. It's kind of very dependent on the track, the genre, how loud it needs to be pushed, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's another thing to consider, bus processing. If it's part of the sound, leave it on. If it's not, take it off. And then there's also a really key part of the mastering process is communication. So communicating with your mastering engineer will get you way better results than just hitting send and waiting for your tracks to come back. If you've got any ideas or any preferences, let them know. You might have a reference track in mind, or a band or an album in mind that you've kind of like been working towards, that you really want to sound, you want your track to sound like this particular thing. Let them know. That's super handy. And also, if you've got any concerns about your mix, you could say, here's my final mix. I really struggled with the low end on this one, so I'm unsure about it. If there's anything you spot, or if there's anything you want me to do to the mix, please let me know and I can do that. That's really handy for us as mastering engineers to know, so that we can, as we're going through the process, we can think, do you know what, actually, I'm struggling to get the volume out of this track because, say, the bass or the kick is really triggering my limiting, and if that was brought down a touch in the mix, then I'd be able to push through my chain a little harder or a little hotter. So it's really important to get that communication going with your mastering engineer, because it makes everyone's life a bit easier and it ultimately gets you a better result. And I know there are services out there where you literally just upload your track to a website, pay, and it goes off and you get your music back. They're fine. They serve a purpose. and people use those. If they're not as fussed about talking to the engineer and having that kind of collaborative relationship, there's a place for that. I get it. That's not how I work. A lot of people come to me because they want to pick up the phone or chat on Zoom or via email and actually talk about the track and what they've done and what they kind of want or what they've struggled with. And by getting that dialogue going, I've found that we can more often than not get a much better sounding master, and clients are much happier because of the communication. And I can get in touch halfway through a master and say, I'm kind of thinking about this direction. I'm kind of pushing this a little bit louder, say, for example. What do you think? Are you happy with that? Or did you want a more open and dynamic master? Is that what you had in mind? And again, just that communication helps get a better sound. And yeah, they're the key things really. Final mix. Is it really a final mix? Promise me it's your final mix. Exporting at the native sample rate and bit depth. It doesn't, oh yeah, your mix doesn't need to be a set volume or have a set headroom. We can adjust the volume instantly with clip gain on our computers and even with analog gear. So as long as it's not clipping, we can work with any volume. Just send it. As long as it's not going over 0, it's fine. So yeah, naming your files as well, really handy. And then communication is kind of the key thing when getting your stuff ready for mastering. The more you communicate, the more we know as mastering engineers, the better we can serve, the song's intention or your intention. And that's really it. There's nothing too complicated. You don't need to know too much about the mastering process or anything like that. Just some open communication and following a few basic steps of exporting files will help you get the best results possible. So there we go. Bit of a short video today, I think. I've no idea how long I've waffled on for. But if you've got any questions, if I've missed anything as well, or you're not sure about anything I've said, leave me a question in the comments and I'll get back to you. As I've said in previous videos, these videos are one takes, no editing. I don't have time to do any editing, unfortunately. And I don't have any courses to sell. I don't have any affiliate links or plugins. I'm not interested in any of that shit. I just really enjoy making these videos, talking to you guys, and trying to write some of the absolute bullshit that's out there on YouTube, taught by 20-year-old kids who have watched other kids who have misunderstood something and then they're trying to teach stuff. So yeah, if this stuff's helpful, please subscribe, like and share it with other people. The next video, I'm actually just going to master a track. I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to show you my analog gear settings, what I'm doing, my plugin settings, what plugins I'm using. So there's all of that. But the key thing really is I'll be talking about what I'm thinking while I'm doing all these things. And that's really the key to learning more about mastering and audio in general, is like how you approach stuff. The specific gear and specific plugins and specific settings don't matter too much. It's more about the intention behind it. What are you thinking while you're trying to do that? So I'm really looking forward to making that video. That'll be out the next one next week. So stick around for that. Make sure you subscribe. And if you've got anything else you want me to make videos about, any questions, or if you need mastering and vinyl cutting, feel free to get in touch with me anytime. Always happy to chat via email, via the phone, or Zoom. And if you're anywhere near Leeds in the UK, you can come in, have a coffee, and look at all the cool record cutting stuff. So I'm going to stop waffling. Hope that's helpful. As always, hope everyone's well, and I'll see you next time.